master's later, it was very natural to kind of go into this line of work. So I do this on a voluntary basis, depending on my capacity. And yeah, that's a quick intro about me, and I'll definitely get into, kind of the overview of what we do at SCS as well. I just want to also, kind of highlight that I'm very well aware that there are lots of people with far more experience than me on this call. So I'd like for this to be a conversation. What I'd like to, kind of just do is highlight the work that we're doing at SES, open a conversation about what works for, us, what doesn't work for us as well, because this knowledge exchange, I think, is beneficial to everyone involved, me included. So I'm not sitting at a place of authority, just happy to open the conversation and lead it today. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. So if you have questions, even in between, please feel free to interrupt me, drop a message on the chat box, and we'll take it from there. Yeah. So what I actually just want to kind of start with is to take you through, what the session is going to be about, which is the work that we do at SES, the niche that we kind of work in, and primarily with our focus being pet adoptions and rehoming of animals. I want to take you through our process and, kind of talk to you about what's worked for us, and maybe exchange some ideas. One of the other primary functions at SES also is our anti-cruelty case cell, where we attend cases that essentially are reported by the public regarding illegal breeding, dogs being treated badly or mishandled, and how we kind of go about it and what's worked for us, over the last couple of years. Beyond this, I want to also just kind of give an introduction to Second Chance and the work that we do. And what I'd like to know from you also is if there's something specific you'd like me to highlight, we can definitely do that in the second part, maybe, after 20, 30 minutes. Happy to share what I know so far and happy to, kind of have an ongoing discussion as well, right? So Second Chance Sanctuary is actually a fairly young organization. We are in our now second 2.5 years into operations, and we primarily are an adoption center. We work with dogs at the moment and hope to, like represented in our logo, work with other animals in the future. But at the moment, given our expertise and experience, we primarily work with dogs who are either abandoned, are owner surrendered, or are confiscated in cruelty cases. And the idea is to be able to, one, attend to their medical needs, make sure that they are safe and ready for adoption, because one of the things that we've come across in public opinion also is that shelter dogs are sickly, that they're not fit for homes, and that's a perception we are very keen to change. So we hope that, they see these dogs thriving at what is a halfway home, and people are able to see that shelter dogs are not necessarily they don't need to be pitied, right? These are dogs who have had a very, very unfortunate turn of events in their lives, and we hope to be that second chance for them. So we, over the last 2.5 years, have, I think, done over 1,000 adoptions in total. There's been confiscations. There's a video I want to show everyone because I think it captures the space that we have right now, where the center in North Bangalore currently houses about 100 dogs, and we are in the process of expanding operations within a year of, even constructing the place. But that, unfortunately, is the need of the hour as well. Right? There are very few centers in Bangalore that also take on cases where dogs have behavioral challenges and aggression. And this is the niche that we typically work in. There is also a bit of a call to action at the end of the video saying support us for funds, but you can just kind of put a pin in that for now. I just want to show you the video because it kind of talks about the work and the kind of cases we take on. Yeah. Let me know if there's any challenge with the audio.
Hi, I'm Sanjana Madhapa. I'm one of the trustees of an animal welfare organization based out of Bangalore called Second Chance Sanctuary. We established the organization in 2022 with the aim of providing a safe space for dogs who are being abandoned, who are cruelty cases, who are illegal breeder confiscations, for them to have a safe space to come, be rehabilitated and get adopted and have a chance at finding homes after. Second Chance Sanctuary is the only organization in the country that works with behavioral rehabilitation cases. We're talking about dogs that have been bought by people without understanding the breed, understanding what the breed requires to thrive and to be safe to live in a society. Unfortunately, up until Second Chance Sanctuary was set up, there was no solution for people who wanted to give up their dogs who had behavioral issues. And so it was a very well-known fact that these dogs were euthanized very quietly without really understanding what these behavioral issues were. And most of them are very easily resolvable. Sam, he was a 3-year-old Rottweiler when he was brought to us. As a result of not being socialized, as a result of not being given the right kind of training, the right kind of engagement, he was a very reactive dog when he came into us. It took about 2 years of rehabilitation for him, but today Sam is 5.5, 6-year-old dog, living in a home, in a society, completely well-adjusted, which just goes to show that it's not the age of the dog, it is the kind of training that you put into the dog and of the dog. We have a great team on ground. We have a staff that consists of 7 people at the center. And all of our boys are well trained to handle these kinds of cases because some of the dogs, when they come in, they are either human reactive or dog reactive. So the staff is extremely well trained in how to handle that safely, keeping the rest of the dogs safe, keeping themselves safe, and keeping the dog in question safe. While we are not set up to be a trauma center, some of the cases that come our way are so bad that we have no choice but to double up sometimes as a trauma center. For example, we have recently a community dog called Millie was run over by a vehicle where his L7 was broken. He had to undergo extensive surgery to have plates and rods put into his spine to stabilize it. His prognosis, thankfully, is very good. So Millie is back here with us now at the center. And we have a trained medical attender who is currently doing the physiotherapy for him. A dog like this would have otherwise been euthanized because it's a spinal injury. Today, Millie is actually now standing, and hopefully we'll get him walking soon enough so that we can then reintegrate him into the community. Given the number of dogs being abandoned on a daily basis that need a safe space to come and get a second chance at life, we are looking at expanding our operations to accommodate at least another 20 to 30 more dogs. Any donation that is made to us will go towards constructing this space, constructing a safe space as well as a space that is not restrictive for the dogs. We don't believe in having kennels. We don't believe in having cages. We believe in a cage-free environment, so even our reactive dogs are given individual pens. Second Chance Sanctuary envisions a world that is kinder to animals, and we hope that you will join us on this journey.
Yes. So that's just a quick kind of introduction to the work that we do, and what I'd like to talk to you about are the 3 primary, I think, tenets that we also emphasize with the people, that whether it's potential adopters, whether it's a community in general that we're talking about as well. A lot of dogs get misplaced, get rehomed time and again because either their medical issues are not, kind of talked about, not attended to in certain situations. If there are behavioral issues, either there isn't a good enough read sometimes, or it isn't revealed, which also creates problems for the dogs, right? We'd rather, just to kind of give you an example, we had a Dachshund, I think, who was rehomed a couple of years ago, and for whatever reason, he hated men. And we were like, how are we going to find a woman-only household for this dog? But thankfully, being able to tell the adopter that, she said, I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. It took 6 months of him settling down. The woman of the house is still his favorite person in the house. But this helps build trust in the community, trust in the conversations with potential families as well, to be able to then ensure that the dog isn't continually kind of rehomed from one place to another because there are issues coming up. So what I want to take you through is how we go about assessing the dog's temperament when they come in. There are behavioral, proper, established tests as well where you check for the temperament. I don't know if I can go into the specifics of it because one, I'm not a qualified canine behaviorist, right? But the people who are do the tests in terms of ensuring to see how comfortable the dog is with touch, how comfortable the dog is with male dogs, female dogs, how they do in a pack, how they do among, say, senior citizens with children, right? These are things that are assessed before we even think about putting the dog up for adoption. Typically, the intake process at the organization, let me just move to the, I'll come back to this slide. The intake process at the organization is one where we first is a medical checkup entirely, right? And I understand everyone is in the space who's on this call. So if some of it is repetitive, I'm really sorry, but I just want to give you like a brief intro into what we do. So they're typically sent, because we are not a trauma center, they are sent to private clinics where they are assessed entirely. They get a CBC biochem check. We check for any underlying diseases, make sure that the dog in question, in the event that they need to be isolated, then they're redirected to a facility that can take care of them in that space, and then brought over where to the center where they are not at threat either to other dogs or to people for that matter. Now, what tends to happen is if there are trauma cases, there are catch and release cases, we'll try our best to ensure that they are redirected to organizations that again specialize in this. But most often than not, typically when people see, one of the bigger breeds, they do call us because they say beyond a certain point, we won't be able to handle it. At our center, we also have the staff that one is trained is comfortable, because not a lot of people are comfortable and we can't push it beyond a certain point. So when a dog is reported to us, we assess if one, we have the bandwidth, the ability, we check internally, we check with people. And this is also where I want to highlight the importance of working with each other. If there are certain organizations, like say in Bangalore specifically, Free Eagles of India primarily works with beagles. So in the event that there are cases either through cruelty confiscations or if they are abandoned beagles reported to us, we'll put them in touch with FOI and say, hey, please check with them if they have the bandwidth to, and we'll help with whatever in terms of transport or otherwise, right? If they are specifically trauma cases, we'll try our best to, but in the event that that doesn't happen, that's when we go internally and take a call. So the idea with the medical check is to ensure that we have a complete idea of what is going on. We've also, spent time developing relationships with different clinics in zones of Bangalore, I would like to say, whether it's the south, the north, and ensuring that, we one get a good read, there's a good working relationship with these clinics. They give us an understanding of what is to be expected, and basis that, then we have a medical attender at the center as well, who then kind of carries on with making sure that the dog is healthy, at least to a point. Now, the behavioral rehabilitation comes next in terms of ensuring that the dog is safe to rehome, right? It is also our responsibility as responsible, adoption coordinators to make sure that we're not putting anyone else at risk. So in the event that through the assessment period that lasts anywhere between, say, a week to about a month, we understand what the dog's temperament is like, and then set out to look for families. When we put a call out for this, we describe as much as we can in detail about the dog's temperament requirements, what would work for them, what doesn't work for them. And we ask individuals who write in to adopt from us to fill out a questionnaire. This questionnaire has not just their basic details, but also gets them to think about, hey, what happens if you are working, say from 9 to 6 in the evening, right? Are there alternative arrangements in the event that this dog has separation anxiety? Or if they say, hey, there are no alternative arrangements, then we will say, hey, maybe there is a dog who's better suited to your needs as opposed to the one you've applied for. If you're working, 12 hours outside of the house, a puppy may not be the right fit, right? A slightly more adult dog, a senior dog who's already settled into their routine may be a better fit in this case. So this is an ongoing conversation that happens when we talk to adopters. But the one thing that I want to kind of highlight and talk a little more about is that narratives are always going to be important. And one of the things that we very, very strongly believe in at SCS is respect goes a long way over sympathy, right? The more you try to gain that sympathy, empathy, and build the story around that, right? There's a lot that's happening already. And I feel like there is a burnout, right? People are already very jaded. So I don't know if that necessarily communicates the dog's need for a home in that manner. Right. And in terms of capacity as well, we've seen wonderful things happen. In fact, a lot of our pictures, even the one that you're seeing on screen right now, was taken actually by our ambulance driver. Apart from being the driver and helping out at the center around various tasks, he's a fantastic photographer and does a really good job. So a lot of our adoption pictures are actually taken by him. So wherever people kind of shine, we encourage it. We also know that they may get a better reaction out of the dog in these pictures because they are the ones working with the dogs on ground every single day, and these dogs recognize them, and that shows in the pictures. These pictures have also played a pivotal role in being able to spread the message. I understand sometimes that it can be a social media game almost that you're playing to see, but at the end of the day, if your narrative is authentic, there's respect, and it's at the forefront, it definitely helps send that story to more people, and it helps us find these dogs homes as well. We don't believe in hiding information. If there is a challenge with a certain dog in a certain specific area, we'd rather be upfront about it. And I think there is a candidness that's appreciated when we do these adoption posts for the dogs in our care. Right. I actually want to take you to this case. This is actually one of the dogs I've adopted. Her name is Jessie. She was reported in the second picture. That was the picture that we got when she was reported to us. Clearly, she was bought to be bred, and I think she probably had one litter before she came into our care. This was during COVID, in fact, and the owner just left her with someone who would just give her curd rice and carrots because that's as much as he could afford to take care of this massive dog who's currently 60 kgs. Had demodecotic mange, had a host of other issues as well. And I think the fascination with breeds is still something that we're working through as well. And in fact, we get kind of called out that we work only with breeds, which is a misconception, right? All of us, in fact, have indies at home. We love our indies. But because of the cruelty case that we work with, a lot of the dogs that come from illegal breeders are dogs that are being bred mercilessly. The dog in the last picture behind was also from also my dog. Her name's Leah. Also, an illegal breeder confiscation for that matter. So when Jessie came into us, what we had to do was take her to the vet, made sure that we, got all these checks done. In fact, she came to us to be fostered. And it took about 3 months for her recovery. Right. So finding fosters as well has been an ongoing process in terms of talking to them and saying, hey, we are looking at anywhere between a 2 weeks to a 1 month period. We talk to them, we ensure that they are understanding of specific breed requirements, right? Like Bernies are extremely emotional, so they may be a little bit more demanding of your time and your presence. Bernies are also requiring more, say, care in terms of the food and everything else. So if finances are to be considered, these are very honest conversations to have at the get-go, right? And this is what also helps us then kind of make sure that the dog is, one, not constantly moving around, right? That they are getting what they require from their foster homes before they are ready for adoption. And we ensure that they're at a state where maybe there is at least a glimpse of their personality that hides under before they experience a traumatic event, that we are able to then have adopters also see, right? When we invite them to the center, they meet the dogs, they spend a lot of time with the dogs. We typically do about 1 to 2 meetings where they're getting to know the dog and understanding what their requirements also look like. So when they fill out the questionnaire, they're thinking about, hey, these are the things that I've already thought about, but what happens if, say, I get a job in 5 years that requires me to move out of the country? Am I then going to be able to take the dog? These are not things that immediately some people think of it. Not everybody does. So this has primarily what's worked for us. These are also the myths that are on the screen are also myths that we address with potential adopters. These are myths that we are also talking to lots of people about, whether it's through social media channels, whether it's through conversations like this one, right? Where we say, hey, training doesn't necessarily mean you're teaching the dog just to sit and stand and do the fancy tricks. Right? It's being able to then take your dog to a vet when they need to and making sure that the dog is not completely stressed out and is able to get the medical care that they require. And training is essential for things like that. Pets talking about, hey, it's important to meet your dog at least once because there's a tendency, very high tendency, to anthropomorphize the dog and say dog should experience motherhood or experience one litter at least, which is something that we always back with claims and back with evidence to say this is not necessarily true. So these have been the myths that we've consistently, even in conversations during potential adoption screenings, we come across time and again. A lot of people also then look for puppies for that matter because they think raising a puppy is a lot easier. But puppies have just been such nightmares to deal with, and I can tell you from personal experience. So just allowing people to experience, just the joy that adult and senior dogs also bring in have been one of the myths that we've had to have ongoing conversations about. One of the things that I will say has been a personal takeaway has to not been jump to conclusions, right? If, say, suppose someone's come in saying, I want only a retriever puppy, I've always wanted a retriever puppy, immediately to shut that application down hasn't been helpful to them or to us, right? We let them experience, spend time with the dogs, and let them also see that that bond is not going to be limited to age alone. So this has been, some of the things that have come up in our experience over the last couple of years. Um, Once the dog is kind of confirmed, there is an adoption process that is in place, we know that our work doesn't end there, right? And as a therapist, what I can also tell you is that regret, even with the best intentions, set in within the first week because everyone's life has changed. They are stressed because they are having to change their routine. There is a dog who's also settling in and decompressing. So our work doesn't end once the dog goes home. In fact, we don't sometimes even announce adoptions until, they have fully settled in and it's been a month and everyone's gotten into a routine and gotten familiar with it. So this is just something that I want to share that, a lot of coordinators may feel the burnout from as well. And it's not easy work, but this is where maybe having volunteers, multiple people, who follow the same process is also helpful because there are multiple people to speak to. So you're not hitting burnout as a welfare organization at one end, and the people who are adopting these dogs are also feeling supported. That as they're dealing with the change, even with the best intentions, right, they are making sure that they're doing right by themselves and the dog, right? We can't ignore human welfare in the process as well. It just takes a little time, and patience has been key in the process alongside. Now, there are situations where adoptions don't work out, right? There are, say, whether it's events in their lives, medical emergencies, or typically just if they say it's not working, they're overwhelmed, right? There have been times when we've said, okay, no problem. The dog can always come back. The responsible thing to do also is if an adoption doesn't work out, we always say the dog will always come back to us because it will continue to be a ward of SCS. That is something we reassure them of, but we walk them through that process as well. Now, again, over here, keeping an open mind has been something that we've had to learn, right? And that everyone else who's done this for about 10, 20 years has figured it out. I'm still learning. It's very easy to get emotional and say, no, but how can you do this? How can you change your mind after all of that? It takes a little bit. And sometimes just being able to do that has helped us also, one, understand the adopters better, helped us reassure them that this is something that they can figure out and things have settled. But in the event that it doesn't work out, it gives us a read, right? That's at least a perspective that we hold that, okay, maybe there is something specific that we need to bear in mind. And if they are a good home, right? A lot of this is intuition based, which is something that I encourage everyone here to also bear in mind that you have to learn if you're working in the field to trust that from sometimes. Right? Learning to trust whether your intuition is something is telling you that this is not a home that we want to engage with more becomes an integral part of the process and can only honestly be developed through more engagement in that sense, right? And a quick kind of introduction into our cruelty case cell. I also just want to introduce Tej, who's on the call. Tej, you can unmute yourself whenever you're ready and whenever if you want to introduce yourself. But Tej is our animal welfare officer who's also
Hi guys.
Hello, hello. Hi, Tej.
he's an animal welfare warden with the state of Karnataka and is legally, the person that is allowed to one kind of intervene in these cases, works very closely with the police to, address situations where it goes against the law and the animals are in danger. So typically what happens is that we have a form that the public can fill out in the event that they see dogs are neglected, even in breeder setups, according to the current guidelines. If you are in the business of breeding your dogs, you are required to have a license. But a lot of backyard breeding is what we, can legally address. So in these situations, when the public reports it to us, state steps in along with the police to go and address the case. And in the event that it's a clear violation, along with the police, he's able to confiscate the dogs. The dogs are then taken to a hospital government hospital, typically where they get a full health check done, there is a health report that basically states that yes, the dog's health has been neglected, they are not well taken care of, and that is what helps us then bring the dogs into our care, right? One of the things that I want to highlight over here, in terms of what works for us, is typically don't file an FIR. So typically, we don't file an FIR because an FIR, in terms of the case being addressed, goes anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, and that means the dogs are in the system without being rehomed for that long. So instead, we go the NCR route, where we say this is the case, and this is what has happened, and there is a transfer of the dogs from so and so person to SCS, which also helps us rehome the dogs faster, address their health, make sure that they're not languishing away in a center. And as lovely as the center and the shelter setup is, it is not a place for dogs. Right? They're not meant to be there. They're not meant to be, amongst so many other dogs in their care. So we'd like to see them home sooner than later, which is typically the process that we follow. Now, one of the things that we found really helpful also is to actually work with the law enforcement agencies in terms of having continual conversations, because in some cases there is a knowledge gap in terms of what the laws themselves are, right? With regards to animal rights, I feel like, again, it goes down on the priority list. It may not be high up on the priority list. There are certain, whether it's police stations or representatives, who are better informed because of their personal interests in the space. But it's an ongoing conversation that we hope to continue to have, and in fact are looking at tying up with universities, law universities, that will also help us create more awareness, so that the public is aware, the people in the field are also aware in terms of what counts for an offense, what counts for confiscation. There are situations where state steps in to do a counseling session in itself, because sometimes it is also easier in a way for the dog not to be misplaced, right, and move to another space, because the dog is doing well, but maybe the pet owners are just not aware of what would be the right requirement for them. So they're kept tied up, or they're kept in a small shed. So these are the kind of cases that they typically attends to. RWAs are another newer, which is associations, where there's a very clear divide sometimes between people who like animals and pets and people who just believe that they somehow aren't, coexisting. They can't coexist, rather. So reducing that human animal conflict is also something that the cruelty case cell kind of looks into very keenly. This is a quick overview. I'd like to give you an kind of insight into the case, but maybe I'll ask Tej to kind of take everyone through what one of our cases has looked like, if there's any interest and if we have the time to. But this is a quick kind of overview of the work that we do, the adoptions that we do. I'd actually like to maybe highlight this one aspect in terms of working with community animals, that even though we are not like I said, a trauma center where we treat and release, we do encourage feeding, we do encourage advocating for these animals. And this is also where Tej, as an animal welfare officer, steps in the event that there are any conflicts with the feeders and resident welfare associations, in the event that someone maybe needs to intervene, right? In the event that there are conflicts where, hey, there are too many dogs in this area, making sure that they're connecting them to spay and neuter programs within the city. These are conversations that are ongoing and are really important to have across the board. And this is also where we work with a lot of other organizations. We, whether it's in terms of supporting them, making sure that these meetings are happening, this is where I think liaison with each other comes into play, right? I'd like to, like I said, take you through maybe one of the cruelty cases, but I'd just like to open it up to questions if anyone has anything specific that they want me to highlight or anything that you want to ask. The puppies who come into our care are vaccinated. If there are pups who, what age is it given? So typically with pups, what is recommended as well is that the first DHL and ARV vaccination when they are 1 month old, when they hit the 30-day mark, and right after that, within the 21-day window, they are given the second vaccination and then the booster on the third one. And this is essential for that 21-day window not to be missed because that protects them from leptospirosis, rabies, and parts of the neck.
Hi, this is Minnie.
Hi,
Hello.
hi, I can hear you.
Yeah, I had a question related to, after adoptions, do you follow up? What is your follow-up mechanism in case, the adopter doesn't interact or, goes out of the picture? What do
Mm.
you do? I mean, do you have a process in place for that?
Yes, we do. So typically, if they are young dogs who are not sterilized, like say they're puppies who are not sterilized, one, we do kind of follow up within the time period, which is there's an Excel sheet with reminders. So say if we know that a dog has gone home at 3 months, we put a reminder for when they are a year old and we get in touch with them. But in between, what we've also seen is that conversations with the adoption coordinator is always ongoing. If we don't hear from them, if there's been absolutely no communication, they've completely gone silent, we will try our best, one, to do a home visit. Tej steps in as well as an animal welfare officer. There have been instances where the adopter has gone completely silent, and we've in fact gone with the law and order, with the police constable in tow, and brought the dogs back in the event that the dog is not being treated well. So we do regular house checks, and we do this in a mixed capacity, whether it's people on the team. Also, just want to highlight that everyone on the board is doing this in a voluntary position. Our only staff at the moment is everyone who is um, oh, sorry, I was just looking at that. Everyone who's at the center, who are the boys who work with the dogs on a day-to-day basis, are on a payroll. So we work with a lot of volunteers. We have a volunteer database and program where we're giving them basics in terms of, hey, this is what to look for when you're calling them, ask for information, ask for pictures, ask for recent updates. So there is engagement in that sense, and we work with the community a fair bit in that way.
We had one from Raisa, Natasha. What can an NGO do
Mm-hmm.
in cruelty cases where there is no support from law and order?
Tej, would you like to maybe take this? I will also answer, but in the event that you've not gotten
Yeah.
support from law and order.
So, a police station works on hierarchy, right? So, there's first the local police station, and the in charge there is the local SHO, station house officer, or the local police inspector. On top of him is the ACP, and on top of the ACP comes the DCP, and above him is the commissioner. So, most of the times, when there is a cruelty case that doesn't attend, if the local police station doesn't attend, we try and escalate it to the ACPs, and that's when most of the things get resolved.
I'd also like to add to this that, one of the things that we've also found really helpful, apart from, Tej's constant kind of work with the law enforcement, is that there is value in building community. So lots of times when, I understand social media has its pitfalls, but it's sent so many dogs home. It's helped us, fight the good fight as well. So ongoing conversations with people saying, hey, this is something that we are struggling with. We may not give details of the case, but we say there is a case. Does anyone have any sort of inputs? We talk to people within our circles, but amplifying it on social media has always helped us find someone who may be able to step in, may be able to get us that conversation, get us that meeting. Tej is also a member of the SPCA. There are a few board members who are members of the SPCA. So ongoing conversations with people in the community will help, but it is a continued effort, unfortunately. And yes, I understand it can be very tiring. All of us do get jaded from time to time. But this is this platform, right? Even the work that FIAPO does that I've been following for a while right now, I think that connections within the community to foster them are really important. So one way or another, continually kind of going at it and looking at different avenues over time does help. It does. There have been cases where we've had to just, admit defeat as well. But it also doesn't mean that work isn't getting done if one case doesn't work out, right? There are 5 others who do. Important to take into account if, say, you are overwhelmed with a specific case, to check with other organizations in the event that they do have the capacity, right? Or they may be able to help you with one small portion of it, whether it's talking to one person, whether it's, hey, I'm having trouble with a medical expenses or setup or whatever it is, right? Multiple people involved in the situation always helps us maybe push the envelope a little bit.
And if I can add something, knowing the laws and having those in print helps a long way, because 90% of the time, apart from the old police officers who are in the same stations or in the same ACP division, not many of them know even the animal laws exist. For example, Prevention of Cruelty of Animal Act, or Animal Welfare Board circulars or state circulars. Nobody has any knowledge, and carrying hard copies of it, it really convinces the police officers to take action.
That's good.
Regarding the comment, Raisa just had another comment saying amplifying on social media, especially with cruelty cases, can open the NGO up to defamation. Any way to deal with this? Defamation laws are also very clear. As long as, again, identifying information in the event that we've put up, say pictures or videos, we try our best to maybe not include faces, right? We try our best to also kind of take a step back from identifying information to the extent possible. But technically, again, like Tej was saying, if you know the law, that's going to be helpful. Try to engage with either lawyers who are within the space, who may be able to do this on a voluntary basis, even law students for that matter, who are going to give you an understanding of the law in terms of how exactly that defamation would, kind of come into the picture in this situation. It's not always watertight from their end to say, I will file a defamation case against you, right? But what I would also advise is make sure that you have your information in place first. In the event that this illegal breeder, we are not particularly keen on anyone breeding their dogs, but in the event that they do have a license in place, unfortunately, it doesn't fall within the purview of law where you can confiscate the dogs. The only reason you can confiscate the dogs in those situations is where it's a case of cruelty. Tej, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
But this is where you have to establish cruelty as opposed to illegal breeding, and that makes your case a little bit stronger. Tej, there's also a question for you. If there's a law against individual to individual adoption. Sorry, Trivandrum.
There's one, Natasha, from Darshan.
Mhm.
Do you have a process for direct rehoming from home to home, or do you only do it with the shelter dogs? If yes, please share some important points.
So in the past, we've done home to home in some situations, but what we've also seen is a pitfall of that, where sometimes the owner who's giving up the dog has changed their mind and it's gotten really messy. So we'll always have a third-party representative, either from SCS or a volunteer, typically bring the dog to a neutral location. In some cases, it's been, say parks in the city, or, even a foster home if they are comfortable with it. And then we, kind of do the exchange of the dogs. In any case, even if it's a home-to-home adoption, we try and ensure that the same process is followed, where people who are adopting from us go through the process where they fill out the questionnaire, they send us a video of their home if they're willing to. If they don't send us a video of the home, we ask them if they'd be willing to, kind of do a video call. So they show us where the dog is. We then have an interview, a conversation with them to, just kind of suss out what works for them, what they're looking for, if there's a good lifestyle fit as well, right? If they take a really energetic dog home and don't have the space and the time to cater to the dog's needs, it becomes a challenge. So these are conversations that have to happen before an adoption is confirmed. But typically we try and use a neutral place without the center being in play. We've also, had cafes write to us, say, hey, if you ever want to use the space for adoption, community co-working spaces where they've said, if you want to use the space, we'd be more than happy to. So continue to engage with the community, because someone or the other will be able to find an ingenious solution, right? We've done adoptions in safe spaces, but we've done adoptions out of offices for that matter, where they've given us the basement and said, this you can do. If you can kind of fence this space off, you can use this. And that's worked for us as well. We didn't have the center for about 2 years. So we primarily worked with a foster network. And adoptions were done either out of a boarding school that we work very closely with, or in public spaces for that matter, where there's safety and some sense of fencing, just in case it gets a little overwhelming. Adoptions have happened. There's two adoption drives have happened in my house as well, if that helps at all. So yeah.
Thank you. And another from Anamika.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to read it?
Yeah. Are you also into cat adoption? Unfortunately, not yet. A lot of us do love cats. We just haven't gotten into that because we don't have the capacity, but it is very much in the works and in the plan. But in terms of sterilizing cats, I think there are some fantastic organizations in the space that have pretty robust programs. I know CARE has a whole team that's dedicated to this, and they have catchers who are, once skilled to be able to do this. In fact, I remember someone who works as a climber, like does this professionally, use the same equipment and the skill set that they use in a climbing capacity as a sport, and that was taught to these catchers. So CARE has a program, CUPA has a program, Alai in Bangalore. Again, I'm talking about local organizations. But there are organizations in the city that do this, apart from BBMP as well. But BBMP, I'm not sure the extent of their work with cats. But yes, we don't work with cats at the moment, but we hope to get there soon.
BBMP is starting a cat sterilization program soon.
Excellent.
Okay.
And for individuals giving up for adoption, please Google Animal Welfare Board adoption form, so that you have a legal document which is binding in police station or in court of law that you've given certain animal to this individual.
Thank you. I think we can move on, Natasha. Yeah. Okay, can you share a form or link for adoption?
Yes, I'll share it with Natasha.
Thank you, Tej.
Tej, if you can you share? Okay. If you can just maybe share that link on the chat box over here, I think everyone can then kind of access it.
Okay, got it.
If we have a little bit of time, Tej, would you maybe like to just kind of take them through one cruelty case in terms of start to end, how you've addressed it?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, there are some people who will have specific requests, and we try and keep an open mind. In fact, with indies, I feel like I speak for us. We've actually been far more, I think, protective of the indie adoptions because we go through the process. I know, I don't know how to really explain it, but we don't push people to, adopt indies if they're not insistent, because then there is a higher chance of them being returned. There are people who are thankfully very open about wanting to, kind of come and adopt indies, and we're very happy about that. There are secretly, but not so secretly, our favorite adopters as well. But what tends to happen is that if, say, there are certain houses, in fact, a lot of the big dogs actually find it quite hard to find a home because, one, people are scared of their size, of their strength and their abilities. So if there are people who have the ability to, sometimes, they've come in sometimes saying, oh, I want a small dog. I want, a dog who's under 15 kgs. And they've taken home a Rottweiler and are very happy with it also. So sometimes it is about the chemistry. It is about just seeing them kind of bond with the dog and see. I think that experience of spending that time has made a huge difference. And for us, it's been, really helpful to just keep an open mind and say, hey, if you're, we look at your lifestyle and what's a good fit here and kind of take it from there. Can we hope the SHC to be open about introducing enriching vegan food options at the sanctuary for dogs, at least vegetarian food to start with? A lot of us on the team ourselves are vegetarian, but dogs are also obligate carnivores, so it's not something that we're pushing for the dogs until we feel like the research can be backed as well. It's a conversation, it's an ongoing conversation. We are in touch with at least 3 different nutritionists in terms of what works for the dogs. That's one part of it. Ensuring that their health isn't compromised in any way. So until we can find a foolproof alternative, we haven't moved them to a vegan diet. Tej left the meeting, but mistake. I think he'll join back.
No problem.
But yes, at the moment, because they are obligate carnivores, we are sticking to a meat-based diet for the dogs at the center. And in some cases, if they are requiring of specific, dogs are obligate carnivores as well. There are people who are vegetarian and vegan on the team. As humans, we can make that choice. We don't need the meat. But we don't know yet because I mean, what we do know is that we are specific about the meat-based diets for the dogs because their health is at challenge, right? And a lot of these dogs, in fact, come from really, really terrible conditions. That right now the meat-based diet is what seems to be reversing a lot of the underlying health conditions and challenging, situations that they've been in, and that's been helpful for them. Hey, Tej.
Okay, so recently we had around 15 dogs all caged up somewhere on the outskirts of Vartul. This was reported by the landlord himself, that his property is being used to house these dogs. And the dog owner actually was from Andhra Pradesh. He used to do back and forth trips, taking care of his family. He also, I'm sure, told his dad or something. Then the dad also had invested a couple of lakhs into to buying all these dogs. So I'm pretty sure having around 15 dogs, his daily expenditure was too much. So the dogs were starved for more than a week. So we contacted the local police station. There was not much support. The cops were very hesitant to confiscate 15 dogs at one shot. I showed them the previous work, the previous NCRs, and the whole books and the laws and everything. They didn't seem convinced too much. So, I can't rub the police officers the wrong way and directly contact the ACPs. So I took it very slow, trying to persuade them, saying, "Sir, please come and look at the condition." Then we had the landlord backing off that evening saying, "Oh no, he's a nice guy. I want to give him a chance. I don't want to confiscate the dogs. Let it be." So we didn't give him any info regarding what we were going to do. We didn't give him the plan. So we just left it and we were doing our back end work. So we landed up at the DCP's office, DCP of Whitefield, in Mr. Girish. So I randomly walked into his office. He was luckily available there. And once he intervened to the police station saying, "Please look into this and the dogs are in trouble," and everything fell into place. The owners got called to the police station, the pet owners, and including their father and mother who was from Anandpur. They got called to the police station. As soon as the inspector took charge, the parents of that kid who was beaten, they backed off saying, "We don't want to do anything. Please take the dogs." So, and technically, the landlord didn't have the keys to open up his own property. He had given all the keys to the tenant, and that fellow was missing. So, if you have to break open somebody else's property, there has to be an FIR registered. So that is why the cops were hesitant, because they had to do so much legal procedures and have to go to court, get permission, and all those things. But once ACP intervened, it was a cakewalk. We had to leave a couple of dogs back because it belonged to the landlord, and we left those 2 dogs back and got the whole 10 dogs out. That there were, I think, 6 Chow Chows, 2 Saint Bernards, a couple of Huskies, and 3 Beagles.
None of these dogs have any business being here in a tropical country.
Right.
And, we hope for laws to change regarding this. But at the moment, what we can do is at least intervene in these cases where clearly there is illegal breeding. And, just to kind of highlight, because of this primarily, every organization has a certain capacity. Now, if, suppose we have a capacity for 100 dogs, and 100 of them have come from situations like this, or if they've been behavioral rehabilitation cases, that is why there are 30 Rottweilers sitting there. We may like, a certain kind of dog, but it's not intentional to say, I will only take Rottweilers or I will only work with this. This is the niche, right? But that niche has also helped us focus our work a little bit. And I think that may be helpful for a lot of people in the space to say, this is something I know how to do and do really well, and focus on that. It doesn't mean that you're choosing one thing over the other. It means you're playing to your strengths. And I think that's something that we found really helpful. Right. That's as much as
Yeah.
I have been able to through. If there are any questions, we're open on the SES, page or email as well.
Yeah.
Happy to hear from everyone, and thank you so much, Akash, for organizing this and putting this together.
Thank you very much. It means a lot. Anyone else with any questions? Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tej. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. It's really been helpful. Thank you.
All right. See you all soon.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.